gonna give it to us. We just gonna have to take it. How many more funerals do we gotta go to? How many more scenes of the crime do we gotta watch?
TX Shipdog 72 sitting here with James Fleming. I contacted James Fleming asking him if he would like to talk to me about everything that's going on. In the interest of doing a fair and complete story, I reached out to him. He's agreed to talk to me, and the only thing I know is to talk about everything that's going on. And you know, I talked to SAXC Perez, and you know, he tells me on the phone what happened, and videos come out, and I watch the videos. So that's all I know. Just like everybody else, we see the videos, and we're limited to what information we see online.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you what I think happened is Jonah was in a restroom. He came out. You told him to put his hands on the wall. He didn't. He immediately voiced that he did not consent to a search. You informed him you were doing a Terry pat down. You conducted a Terry pat down. Then you guys went to the vice principal's office. And in the vice principal's office, the vice principal wanted to search him. He wanted to call his parents. The vice principal told him he couldn't. Then he wanted the vice principal to notify his parents. The vice principal said no and wouldn't allow him to do that, and still wanted to do that search. You were present. It was you, the vice principal, and him present in the vice principal's office. I don't know how long it took, but eventually he consented. He took off his socks and shoes, took his socks inside out, took his pockets inside out. From what I understand, nobody touched him. The bag was searched, nothing was found. He was sent back to class. And that's the gist that I got from the videos of what occurred.
Right.
Since then, Todd has put out videos pertaining to the incident. The school has been contacted by many people, which is often the case when videos are put out.
Right.
If people perceive any wrongdoing, they're gonna call. So the school's been contacted. From what I understand, you've been placed on administrative leave. The vice principal, we're not sure what her status is, but Jonah hasn't seen her anywhere. And now I think Todd is receiving phone calls, or somebody's trying to contact people around him and smear his name and smears Jonah's name. And so what I'd like to do is give you the opportunity to, and you can ask whatever question.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you ask something and I know the answer to it, I'll give it to you.
No. So real quick before the interaction, like I tell you how the interaction went. Like this was my first school year here at Kitty Hawk Middle School, right? So during that time, you know, I build intelligence, right, through people who come up to me, students who come up to me and say, you know, so-and-so is in the bathroom and they have, you know, drugs or whatever, or they're smoking or whatever. So you start building this intel of like who these kids really are, like who is who, right? And this has been established through, you know, arrests, unfortunately. And the fact is, I have taken more drugs out of Kitty Hawk Middle School than basically any other Judson school combined altogether, right? So I was really that was like my focus, right, is getting drugs. So no, you know, students approached by another kid who's a little bit more schooled and say, hey man, just try this or do this or that. So that was my main concern, was the drugs on campus. Last year the SRO barely made any arrests or anything like that. Yeah. And so they thought that they had like a drug epidemic this year, which is untrue. It was going on. It's just nobody was really kind of knocking it down, really, like trying to get the dope off there. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, students have been arrested from the school for that reason. So building intel and keeping my sources confidential was basically my information, right? And these students that have been telling me, I've used the same students and they're credible because I've made arrests on what their information was. Now, the information on Jonah is that he has been seen or heard telling students that he was a drug dealer or that he was a dealer or whatever. And so I just kept that information, not a big deal. But I do my research. So what I did was I went back into the Judson system and the discipline just to kind of see, and I did it with a bunch of students. Let me see what their behavior's like, and let me see if there's any cases involving that student. And I did that. And I found that last year, Jonah was searched and found in possession of ammunition. And so obviously that causes concern for me at that time. This was like, we're talking like maybe 2-3 months ago. And so I just kept that, in the back of my mind. Well, I got information that a student didn't make it to ISS. He was instructed to go to ISS. He didn't go. So I go looking for him. Check the cameras. I see that he's up in a certain area. I don't want to give the school's business as far as property and blueprints, but I find him, that kid I was looking for, and Jonah in the restrooms, which I've made multiple arrests of marijuana, either transactions or possessions on. So
At the restroom?
in the restrooms, not that one in particular, but other restrooms,
School
right?
restrooms.
Mm-hmm. And so the student he was with, that student also, I have information that teachers and students have heard him say in class, like the teacher asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And his response was, I want to be bigger than Pablo Escobar, right? Obviously that's nowhere near like probable cause to do anything with, right? But you just build intel over the time, and I've learned this through working with narcotics detectives. And so you just build this information. So when I walked in there, neither one of them were in any like movement towards the door. They were in there just hanging out, having a conversation. I instructed them to come outside. The reason why I did that is because there are cameras out in the hallway, and it protects me. I don't have body cameras. Right. Okay. So I bring him out there, and I say, y'all put your hands on the wall. And based off of his report from the year before that he had ammunition, I just want to protect myself, and there's also 2 of them. So I felt that reasonable enough, given the fact that there was ammunition found on him the year before, to at least conduct a pat down. If it's one student, I don't typically do it if there's no information, right? I'm not going to put one student's hands on the wall and pat him down. I will, however, walk behind them while we walk to the principal's office. That way I can keep my eye on him. Now with 2, you can't do that, and also the circumstance of his report about the ammunition the year before. So as he's coming out, I said, put your hands on the wall. He said, you're not going to search me. And I said, young man, put your hands on the wall or it's about to get real. And so he put his hands on the wall. I conducted a pat down of the other student. And with 2 of them, I didn't feel comfortable having to walk them down myself, so I contacted the principal. The principal came up, and then we walked them down to the principal's office. Now, he did ask to call his parents. However, at that time is not the time to just get on your cell phone and call. We contact the parents and say, this happened. That's what we do, right? So we walk down there. He sits in the office, and then they call him back to the principal's office. And I'm in there. I gave the principal a little gist of, what happened, and, this is going on. Well, she felt that she wanted to conduct a search. And the way that works is that the students, while they're in school, they're under basically in loco parentis, which is the principals are in place of the guardians at that time, right? So if they feel like it's in the interest of school safety, they'll conduct a search. And yes, there are some principals that have them take their socks off and everything. Typically, it's pull your shorts out, you know, pat your pockets, look through your bag, you know, simple stuff like that. But in this instance, Jonah did take his socks off. Now, I'm sitting there just doing my own thing on my phone because I'm just there to take any evidence she finds into custody. There's no, like, it wasn't very intrusive, is what is being portrayed online. The door was unlocked. I saw one video saying something that the door was locked and that he was intimidated by a police officer, and which was very untrue. But they conducted the search, and then the principal called mom. Mom said, call dad. So, which I didn't know, stepdad, whatever, that doesn't bother me. I don't know who he is, but they just said, call dad.
Who called mom?
The principal.
Okay.
Right? Mom said, call dad. So that's what she did, and then while she's discussing the situation, I can hear that dad probably wasn't really agreeing with what was going on, because she was like, you know, sir, just, you know, understand, and trying to get him to just listen for a second. And while that was going on, I had Jonah next to me, and I said, hey, Jonah, come here. I said, I just want to let you know, I understand you said I don't want to be searched or whatever, but I want to educate you on your interaction with police officers as a whole, right? Now, I've seen videos where you guys have resisted what you believe is unlawful, right? And you're obviously within your rights to do that. However, with everything going on right now in the world, like, I try to educate these kids because I talk to them way more than any other officer on the outside is ever going to talk to them, right? Because I see them every day. So I know them. I build personal relationships with these kids. So I was like, hey, man, like, I get it, right? You know, you don't want to be searched, but you didn't know my intentions. My intention was not to search you. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have any weapons. And right at that moment is not the time to just say, you're not going to do this or do that. I said, what you need to do in the interest of your
suspicion. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not, you couldn't.
For me, if you wanted to search me and I said I don't want to be searched, that wouldn't raise any suspicion because you know what I'm doing.
It raises a threat assessment. Especially with the ammunition prior, you know, it kind of raises your threat assessment of the student. But either way, I told him, like, hey man, like, just go, like, say okay, yes sir, whatever. Let him conduct. If he wanted to search you, he could search you, and then that will be unlawful. Get the report number, make sure it's documented, and then sue his ass later. I said, but right then in the moment, just comply, you know. And I explained to him, a pat down. I said, son, like, I could pat you down, feel your pocket on the outside, and feel like what I probably know through training and experience is maybe a baggie of marijuana. I cannot go in there and pull that baggie out because that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for weapons. I can't reasonably articulate that a little baggie of marijuana is going to harm me, right? So I kind of educated him a little bit, and I said, if your dad has any questions, he's more than welcome to come up here and I'll tell him. And so he, you know, we fist bumped and everything. So I just went along with my business. And then that was like the 6th or the week prior. And then when I got to work on Monday, I was directing traffic, and I hear about, hey, we're getting multiple calls about a video. And, you know, to me, I was just like, probably some Snapchat video or whatever, because we had a
Who came
situation.
to you about that?
I just heard it over the campus radio.
Okay.
And said something about a video. So I was just like, okay, whatever, like Snapchat video. We had a previous situation where a Snapchat video ended up getting to the Attorney General's office, right? So I was like, it's kids fighting or whatever. They videotaped that. So that didn't raise any concern. And so then I go to the patio, and then Jonah approaches me, and he has a letter, right? And it says on there, campus police. And okay, 7th grade ears, I don't want that shit. It's probably not something I should say. I get that. However, I've found through being an SRO that if you use general language with these kids that they use way worse than an officer, if you use that, it almost kind of like shocks them, like, oh man, the officer's a real person. Like, you know, hey, he cussed over there,
Establish
whatever.
a connection.
Right. And so it wasn't like I didn't know anything about the video. I knew a video, but I assumed it was a fight caught on Snapchat or something. But the video was already out, and so obviously that interaction doesn't look very good. But it wouldn't have been any different had that video not ever been out. Like, I'd have still said the same thing. And I told him I don't take notes from parents. And I don't. I had already explained to him, you know, hey, tell your dad to come in, man. Like, let him see that I'm a real person, and my interest was for the safety of him and everybody else. So then, after the kids go in and get into the classrooms, right, I go into my office. Well, I get a call saying come to the conference room. So I walk into the conference room, and then I see like a bunch of district officials in there. And so I walk in there, and they're like, hey, can you tell us about the search? And I was like, what search are you talking about? Because they had already seen the video. And they said that the one with Jonah last week. And I said, oh yeah, I said the initial one. He tried, right. And this is like, I'm gonna start exactly how it went. They asked me that question, and I said, oh yeah, Jonah. I said that he tried to give me an envelope this morning, but I don't take notes from parents. But last week when I found him in the restroom, and then I go into my story, right? Well, again, I don't know anything about a video. I walk out of that room explaining what happened, and I go to my office, and I'm like, tell me what's the YouTuber's name. He says SAXTC Prez, whatever. I actually didn't even know what the hell it said at that time until I heard somebody on the camera say, this is what it is. Right, yeah.
Okay.
So it was like, we watched like a minute and a half, and they had like a passing period. So I had to go back out to the patio just to kind of walk around, let them know, hey, officers on campus, whatever, just like every other day, right? Okay. And then 30 minutes later, I get a phone call, and it says, hey, did you have it was well, I don't really want to say who it was on the phone, but it was somebody in my leadership that said, hey, did you have an interaction with that student this morning? I said, yes, I told you. And I said, he tried to give me a note. And they said, well, what happened? And I said, well, he came up to me with campus police written on there, and I said, I don't want that shit. You know, I don't take notes from parents. And I'm paraphrasing, but I said something like, you can go to the PD with it, or you go somewhere else with it, whatever. But the person on the phone goes, you didn't say that this morning. I said, nobody asked me about that this morning. They asked me about my interaction last week, and I just divulged, yeah, he tried to give me a note, but I don't take notes from parents. And so they're like, well, come to the PD. And so I walk in, and of course there's some district official there, and they have a complaint filed for false statements, because apparently they took whatever I said in the morning as an official statement, which it was official about the situation the week prior, and they said since I was they were saying it was false statements. However, the first time I was asked about the situation, I told them what I said. So I was really confused at that time, right? So and I've signed some write-ups, I will say that, but none about lying, because I've never lied to them. And I'll even give you a situation. I got smacked in the face by a student 2 years ago, 8th grader, and I said something to the effect, you better not fucking do that again. And next time I'm gonna have your fucking ass or face in the pavement or some shit to that effect. Of course, it's 2 years ago. I don't remember, but I know 2 F-bombs were dropped, and it was in the presence of other students to that kid. So I called the Sarge and I said, hey Sarge, just want to let you know, like, any negative interaction I had with a student, I called my sergeant and said, hey, this is, you get a phone call about this. Yeah, I said, fuck twice. And he's like, all right, cool, So for me for them to write me up for false statements that I didn't disclose, that I said the word shit, I was like, that to me that's not accurate, right? But however, they're They have a little bit more power than I do at that moment, and they were looking for somebody to hang, if you will, for all the bullshit that had been stirred up by the videos, which I'm telling you right now, they were filled with false information. The video that I ended up watching while I was put on administrative leave without pay, I obviously had plenty of time at that moment to watch the videos. So I'm looking at all the other videos that are being made, the comments that are being made, and I'm like, there was nothing unlawful about what happened. So I was very shocked that not only did he believe that without coming to me when I told Jonah, like I said, we pounded it when we left. Yeah, I thought he had a better understanding, and that he would go to Dad and say, hey Dad, you need to go talk to the officer about this. But nobody asked me. When they asked me about the video they asked me about what I said to Jonah, and that's when I told them, I said, I don't want shit, blah, blah, whatever. And they said, well, Dad said that you reported that interaction. And I said, okay. I'll sign a shit right up. You know, you said shit.
Did anybody discuss anything about the principal?
No one asked.
This is how we do